back into the spread, NESN.com's football picks video podcast. That's a mouthful, as always. And as always, on NESN.com's Mike Cole. That's Ricky Doyle, Andre Kachaturian. The premise of this video ordeal, or audio, depending on how you're consuming this, is always the same. We're going to make our football picks against the spread. We touched on it last week. It's very important disclaimer to make, especially when we get to this Patriots-Titans game, because it's going to look like it's going to be a very bad graphic.
You mentioned that because our records last week were bad against the spread, but straight up, we should do this. Rename the podcast and call it Straight Up.
I did that to differentiate and like kind of to have it work in our favor a little bit, and just to kind of
ended up screwing us.
And then ended up screwing us. If people watched that thinking we were just operating under the assumption that it was an even playing field, we would have looked a lot better.
Which should we just? Do you have anything else to add?
No, I was just going to say that we're into the divisional round. I think we should probably announce that off the top. A lot of people will call this the best football weekend of the year. I don't know if you guys have checked that one off of your divisional round bingo yet. I don't know if you've heard that yet. I think I might have been the first person to bring that up. But historically, this is a very good week of football. We've gotten rid of some of the chumps last weekend, and now we started reintroducing some of the favorites. I know it's
have a couple chumps kicking around the yard.
Chumps in the water.
I've always been more of an AFC Championship, NFC Championship weekend guy.
I guess. I mean, there's an argument to be made for both. I don't know. You have games on both days. You got more.
I'm not a big fan of having games on both. I like to do something else with my Saturdays.
That's understandable, but it's depending on the weather too.
I couldn't do laundry this weekend because of that.
That's the dumbest thing.
You look good today, though. We got very similar wardrobe selection.
Wow, Jesus. How do you get the memo? Because we're like the same exact thing.
We didn't even call each other, so.
All right, that's enough of that.
Oh, let's go look at the standings from last week. Here they are after the wild card. All of us went 1-3. We flip-flopped in the Saturday.
You sure you don't want to wipe the slate clean going into the playoffs?
Well, yeah, I guess. I mean, I like to.
No, guys, I think we should really wipe the slate clean.
If Mike and I had settled our score after 17 weeks, then we would have wiped the slate clean. But since we're still tied after 18 weeks now,
this week I think is going to be between you and I. This could be the week that settles everything. I mean, almost certainly it will.
I hope so, because the last 3 weeks is just 3 games.
We
have to do Pro Bowl tiebreaker.
all went 1-3 last week. Correct?
Yeah.
We flipped. We split on the Saturday games, and then the Sunday game we both
over.
Okay, let's get to it.
All right. We'll start Saturday afternoon. We'll make a little NFL history. This is the first time in the history of the league that the number 1 seed has been the underdog in the divisional round. That's because the Atlanta Falcons are going to go to Philadelphia to take on the Eagles. The Falcons doing so as 3-point favorites. Obviously, a lot of this stems from the quarterback issue. Nick Foles will be under center for Philly, where Matt Ryan, a little bit better than him, played pretty well Saturday night against the Rams. A game that we all said last week that we would struggle with, and you and I think you took the Rams as well.
Yeah,
we struggled with it. But I don't think anybody was shocked to see the Falcons win that game, especially with the way that game played out. But like I said, Falcons favored on the road in the divisional round against the Eagles. Ricky, why don't you start it off?
It's got to be the first time in NFL history too that a team went from what were they 6-point underdogs last week, 5.5 point underdogs to 3-point favorites. I mean that's a huch swing right there. So again, obviously, people buying into the Falcons here, despite their offense looking, still lackluster compared to last season. I actually like the Eagles in this one. I'm going with the home team. I'm taking those points. I'm going to run with them, and it's because I like that Eagles defense. I know there's some questions as to how Nick Foles is going to operate on the center, but I love the matchup with the Eagles defensive line. Particularly in the middle when you got Timmy Jernigan and Fletcher Cox going up against those Falcons guards. Andy Lucic talked about his injury last week. Aaron Donald just made a mess of him in the losing effort. So I just think the Eagles can create some pressure up front. Stop them on first and second down, maybe negate that run game a little bit, force some pressure on Matt Ryan, make him into some third and long situations where, listen, Matt Ryan hasn't looked that great this year. I know you can talk about the offense finding its stride a little bit. It hadn't had 1 3-touchdown game this season. After last season, when he had 9 games with at least 3 touchdowns. So obviously there's still some there's issues to be worked out offensively, whether it's Steve Sarkisian, that's the fall guy, offensive coordinator, but I just like the Eagles defense in this one.
Andre?
I'm going to go with the Atlanta Falcons. I struggled with this so much. I even texted Mike at around 10 a.m. about 3 hours ago. I just want to tell him something and see what he's responded with. Maybe it'll help make my
bounce an idea off.
Bouncing an idea off. I said, Mike, I'm going to go with the Eagles in this one. I mean, the more I think about it, I'm going with the Eagles. But I changed my pick at the last second. I went with the Falcons. When you look at things in the whole season scope, you say, the Eagles are a great pick in this game. But I'm not going to do that. I'm going to look at post Carson Wentz because they don't have Carson Wentz. It's a smart thing to do.
Yeah.
You should not look at the Carson
MVP
Wentz
front runner.
Exactly. So what I'm looking at is Eagles since December. They have a negative 0.62 yards per play differential, and some of those games were against bad teams: the Giants, the Raiders, and it was week 17 against the Cowboys, which was both teams basically rested their players, but still. That's bad. And let's look at this chart I made. It's fantastic. I went and I dug some numbers.
What the hell are we working with?
Okay, this is the week-to-week Eagles yards per play differential. Look at that peak at the top. That's like week 9, 10, 11. That's when the Eagles were having the time of their lives, just killing every team. And then slowly it dipped even further when Wentz went down, and then it's been below 0 since Wentz has been out. So that's really what I'm looking at because sure, the Eagles, they get turnovers. They had 31 takeaways this year. It's really good. They were 4th in turnover differential. Matt Ryan, as Ricky, you talked about, they haven't been doing really well. But look, now let's point to the Falcons' weekly yards per play differential. I'm sorry.
What the hell is going on here?
It's
a PowerPoint presentation.
Hold on 1 second. This is the Falcons' week-to-week yards per play differential. And last week, they had their worst of the season, and they still killed the Rams. But all in all, it's been pretty decent. It's been hovering above 0, as you can see in this fantastic Excel graph. So I'm going to take the Falcons in this one. More experience at the quarterback position. They got better running backs. You got to say, right? You just say that they have better running backs?
Yeah.
The Falcons? So yeah, take it back. And Nick Foles, he's averaged less than 5 yards per pass attempt since he's been playing. That's bad. You know how bad that is? That's Joe Flacco-esque.
Okay. Yeah.
What do you got for visual elements?
I didn't bring it.
Hey, we got to use visual elements more. I like it.
If we were making these picks on Sunday night, Sunday afternoon, I probably would have taken Atlanta. I probably would have taken Atlanta.
Both birds.
It was the spread opened at 2.5. Since then, it's moved to 3. I like it a lot more at 3 than I do at 2.5.
Wow, that's half a point, really?
Yes, that half a point is big.
That matters.
Okay.
Yeah, because now at least I have a chance of pushing, and then you're playing with everything else under 3 there. I think a lot of it too. I don't know. I kind of zoned out when Ricky was talking, so I don't know if you talked about this, but
people tend to do that.
You gotta. I have to imagine that. Sure, Nick Foles, quarterback, the Eagles, not ideal. Gotta imagine you got a pissed off football team. You can't.
No, I didn't touch on that.
No, okay.
I'm glad you did.
Sure, the Falcons better at the most important position on the field, but the Eagles coming off of a bye, and now they have to go into a game being, like I said, literally the first number 1 seed to be an underdog on in the divisional round. And sure, I don't disagree with the line necessarily, but I think that that's a factor as well. Again, you touched on the defense. I think there's chance there for maybe if they don't score on defense to give them a little bit of a shorter field. Foles, for as bad as he's looked at times since taking over, he's also looked good at times. You kind of rolling the dice there. Not something you want to hang your hat on necessarily, but it's not like they're putting in Deshaun Kaiser or somebody like that. Let's see. I don't know if this means anything, but Jay Ajayi ran for 130 yards against this defense when he was with the Miami Dolphins back in week 4, 5, 6, whatever that was. So that's something to keep in mind. That's a good rushing defense too. The Philly rushing defense allowed 3.3 yards per carry at home this year.
But can I add something to that?
Sure.
They allowed the fewest rush attempts too, which I know in the per carry means anything, but when people say, "Oh, the Eagles allowed the fewest rushing yards," no one ran against the Eagles because they're always trailing.
Yeah, that's why I use yards per carry.
But still, it's different though. It's different.
What were you gonna say?
No, to go off your point about too of the Eagles' run defense. I mean, you stop them on first, second down. Do you trust Matt Ryan to make a play on third and long? You get him into some.
I don't necessarily trust Steve Sarkisian to make the right call in that situation.
So yeah, I mean, it's one and the same for the purposes of this.
Because look at what they did last week. They didn't dominate, and despite being given great field position at times, Farrell Cooper still dropping punts as we speak right now.
Yeah.
They were put in a good position. They went 3 and out a lot. They were sluggish early.
Todd Gurley ran the ball well when they gave him the ball. They had 16 rushing attempts. If you're the Eagles, the game plan of this, the play is to dial up the run time after time. Don't put the game in Nick Foles' hands until you absolutely have to.
I will say this, though. This is a stat I have written down here. Philly averaged 143 yards on the ground per game with Carson Wentz at quarterback. Only 85 was Foles. So I think the game plan is obvious as you stack the box and try to make Nick Foles beat you. But for me, I think it just has more to do about what can Atlanta do on offense against that Philly defense? Playing on the road, second week in a row, you're traveling all over the country. A lot going against Atlanta, despite the fact that they probably feel pretty good about themselves.
Do you know offhand the over/under?
It was good. That was actually my final point. My final point.
Him and the under.
My final point is that
41.
It's 41 right now. That's one of the lower. I think the only other lower one is the Jacksonville-Pittsburgh game. I think that's a 40.5, if I'm not mistaken.
No, it's also 40.
So the way I look at it is, and this is nothing new. You got a lower total. You're probably seeing a lower scoring game, obviously.
Right.
The points mean more.
Yeah.
Getting the points mean a little bit more when you're talking about a low scoring game, in my opinion. So I think it's just, for me, it's not necessarily, I don't feel great about this pick, but it's just more about the situation and the points and the spread as opposed to necessarily the game.
One thing, just one more couple other things on that. Eagles were 22nd in sack percentage. If Matt Ryan's going to have time to throw, then yes, I do think in those third and long situations, he will be successful, especially with that wide receiver.
I'm not convinced he's going to have time to throw, though.
But the 22nd in sack percentage, he'll have time to throw. I mean, the Eagles aren't known as a pass rush team. I think
the personnel's there to close the pocket a little bit on him. And Matt Ryan, hangs onto the ball a little bit from time to time. So,
one more thing, Carson Wentz. The Eagles are so good in the red zone with Carson Wentz.
Yeah.
Now, I think a lot of those red zone situations are going to turn from touchdowns to field goals. You know what I mean? Nick Foles isn't really going to be successful in the red zone. I think that might be a big difference in that game as well. But then again, this is the hardest game to pick, I think.
I agree.
It was very difficult.
66% of the bets, according to this is Sports Insights, has, like I said, 60% of the bets coming in on the Falcons, so 2/3 as it stands right now. So we're fading the public on that. I feel better.
And I like that. I feel good about that.
Yeah, me too. All right, Saturday night. This is the most lopsided spread of the weekend. To the surprise of nobody, Tennessee Titans, fresh off of shocking the Kansas City Chiefs, sending Andy Reid to yet another home playoff loss. Sending the Chiefs to another playoff loss in general. They haven't won a home playoff game since, I think, the Lincoln administration. The Titans, a big upstart win. Now they have to go on the road, take on a rested, in supposedly recuperating New England Patriots team that's getting guys back. I think they're as healthy as they've been in 5 or 6 weeks probably. Patriots, as it stands right now, according to OddsShark, 13.5-point favorites. I expect this line to climb even more. Again, you want to talk about the 2.5 points in the other game. I would have loved to have get this at 14. That kind of tell you where I'm going with my pick. But 13.5 as it stands right now. Total set at 47. Weather not going to be much of an issue. There's rain. It is going to rain like cats and dogs, like you never believe. I think according to I saw like 3.5 inches of rain between Friday and Saturday, but it sounds like it's going to be out of the area by Saturday night. I think it sounds like a little foggy, so maybe we get fog bowl like episode 2. Yeah, so that's something to keep an eye on. A little bit of wind. Weather's not going to play a huge factor in this game, is what I'm saying.
Falcons game sucked.
Yeah. That did suck.
That game sucked. I hope it was not that.
Patriots, 13.5-point favorites. According to Sports Insights, 73% of the bets on Patriots right now. That's not a huge surprise. Andre, are you going to lay the points here?
I'm going to take the Patriots minus 13.5. Let me tell you why. Everyone's always talking about, the Titans running game is really good, and Titans are actually 7-0 when rushing for more than 100 yards in the game, and the Patriots really are struggling stopping the run. But look at this. Look at this. First of all, did you hear Mike Mularkey's conference call yesterday?
Yeah.
And Doug Kyde brought this up on their other great podcast between the tackles. He looks like he's just throwing the towel. This is what his quote was. They're the number 1 seed, home field advantage throughout. I'd like to just see us play our best football to see where we are at with these guys. That sounds like this is like a litmus test.
It's a guy who just got told
week 3 of the preseason. I want to see where we stand against this team.
That's a guy who was just told that his job is safe for next year.
Exactly. Yeah. It's like, I don't get it.
Alabama going up against Quincy
Cigar.
College.
Yeah, basically. So it's that'll be a good game. Anyway, so a couple more reasons why I'm taking the Titans. They haven't had the Patriots. Titans haven't had a turnover-free game since week 3. They're basically short of a turnover. That's not good against the Pats. Also, the Titans allowed 853 yards to tight ends this season, second most among the playoff teams. So Gronk's going to have a massive game. And to top it all off, the Titans allowed nearly 1,000 receiving yards to running backs this year. What do the Patriots do? They pass to running backs.
Yep.
Deion Lewis, Rex Burkhead, Rob Gronkowski are going to have an amazing game.
James White back in the fold. I agree with you for all the reasons you mentioned. This just smells like a classic Patriots divisional tomato can game, if you want to call it that. You look back, just historically, last 6 home playoff games, 6-0, winning by an average of 17.8 points. Divisional round since 2011, they score an average of 37.5 points. So they just light up the scoreboard. You mentioned that the Titans struggles defending running backs and tight ends. I look back, that game, it changed a lot when Travis Kelce went out. He was a big factor in the first half of that game before going out in the second quarter. So I think Gronk absolutely goes off in this game. I could see the Patriots really just steamrolling them. And we talked about it the other day, just kind of kicking around the office. This loss could end up being like the worst. The win last week against the Chiefs could be like the worst thing imaginable for the Titans. Because
they have to keep Mularkey.
Mularkey keeps his job, and then you're looking at next season where perhaps they don't even take another step forward. So this is just a bad team. Shouldn't even be in the playoffs and they get their ass kicked.
Yeah.
I don't think they're a bad team. I don't think they're a bad team. I don't. It's just
whatever.
Fine. I don't think. I think they've been mischaracterized this week as being a bad football team. I think they're better. Point differential. They've got a negative point differential for the season. That doesn't look good. But I think that's kind of if you get blown out a couple times, that'll get a little wonky. It's not great. I know.
But I think you can slap lipstick on a pig. It's still a pig.
Yeah, fine. But the thing is the pigs are. We have the pigs now. Like these are the pigs. What the pigs did in October doesn't necessarily affect what the pigs are going to do Saturday night.
Now you're making it pancakes.
At this point, that pig's just going to be good bacon.
I think the Patriots win this football game. I want to say that again. I said at the beginning we picked these against the spread. That being said, I'll take the 13.5 points. I wish I was getting 14. I'd feel a lot better about this. It comes down to not necessarily a coin flip because I think the Patriots' chances of executing their game plan is better than 50-50, but it all comes down to can the Titans run the ball? Because if the Titans run the ball, sure, they are screwed. They can't defend running backs. They're going to have a tough time with Rob Gronkowski. I admit that. That's all true. But hell, if they run the ball like they can, and they've shown in the past that they can do, that changes things at least in terms of taking away possessions from the Patriots, taking plays away from the Patriots. Time of possession becomes even more important. That's the only, I would be shocked if we're sitting here on, next week and say, yeah, I can't believe the Titans covered or, heaven forbid, won the football game without running. They're going to, that's the only strategy, right? So I think one of the most important people in this entire game, as it always is an 80-year-old, Dick LeBeau. Dick LeBeau going to figure his crap out? How many times does Dick LeBeau have to be picked?
For 80, though.
He does. He looks great for 80. How many times has he got to be picked apart by Tom Brady? Brady's 6-2 in his career against LeBeau defenses, 19 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. Because Brady picks apart the blitz. He especially picks apart the zone blitz. Dick LeBeau, the friggin' godfather of the zone blitz. He's got to take a lesson from his old team. And I don't know if they have the personnel to do this. They probably don't. But they've got to play more man coverage. We saw that when the Patriots went to Pittsburgh earlier this year. How often do we hear it? The Patriots torch the Steelers all the time. You know why the Patriots torch the Steelers? Because Brady picks apart his own defense better than anybody else in this game. The Steelers finally started to play man coverage, and they hung with the Patriots. They didn't get blown out, obviously. Sure, they had trouble with Gronk, and I think the Titans ultimately do as well, but 13.5 points, that's a lot of points. So again, we're taking the points here. I went back, did a little, I know you guys like this, did a little film study. A little film study, not, untrained film study.
You should have sent me the graphics.
No, but so I went.
Aerial shots.
I went back.
Like Cole's aerial shots.
And again, I just made this point myself. It's tough to kind of necessarily look at what happened in weeks 3, 4, 5 early on in the season and kind of extrapolate and point to that's going to happen in the same way in a game this time of year, especially with rosters have changed, schemes have changed, things like that. But I went back and watched some of the film from the Panthers game and the Texans game, because I think you look at Marcus Mariota, and sure, the numbers aren't great, but I think he does some of the things that the Patriots had trouble with when they were trying to stop Newton and Watson earlier in the season. I think clearly he's a mobile quarterback. I think maybe he extends a play here or there, because I'm not saying that they're going to win the game, but you're just looking to extend one drive and turn a touchdown or turn a field goal into a touchdown, and maybe you're closer. It's more of a numbers thing than anything else. So I think maybe Mariota has a way to do that. If I'm the Titans too, I do a lot of misdirection, a lot of crossing routes. We saw again when I went back and looked at that. The Texans did a great job with that. I think that all stems from Bill O'Brien. I thought they had a pretty good game plan. I think that the Titans probably have the personnel to be able to pull that off. Whether they do it or not is.
That's the thing. It's like you're giving all these things that the Titans should do. If you were the head coach of the Titans, maybe they would cover. But you're not the head coach of the Titans. Mike Mularkey's the head coach of the Titans.
It's taking because when
but
I first
I'm just
looked
saying,
at the spread,
with the crossing routes and things like that, that's exactly what the Dolphins did. So there's tape out there on the
well, let's see if they implement it.
The Patriots don't have a ton of team speed in the front seven. That's really I think that's a big point. Especially like James Harrison. I'm sure James Harrison looked great against the Jets, but I don't like him trying to cover guys coming out of the backfield or something.
The Titans do have a good offensive line.
They have a great offensive line too.
It's just a lot of convincing involved with this pick. Like I initially just saw the spread,
and
I'm like, oh, maybe I can convince myself that the Titans are going to win this game, but
no,
I can't do it. Especially, we didn't even touch on how much worse they've been on the road this year.
Yeah, that's true.
Especially Mariota.
That's true.
But again, they were bad on the road going into last week too.
And let's talk about the opponents.
It's different.
Also,
it is different. I know. I'm just saying. The stats only go so far this time of year. And again, it's easy for me to say that when I'm going to start talking even more stats at some point, but including the next game.
Okay, let's go up
Move
west.
on? I thought you were going to make a point there.
No,
he's biting his tongue.
Okay.
I have a couple more points,
one.
but they're not interesting points.
All right.
Stuff I've said in weeks. If you want those points, go watch previous episodes of the spread.
We dig into the archive. That's the beauty of the internet. You can look up old stuff.
Sunday afternoon, this is, I guess, I don't know if I would call this a good game necessarily, but it's a football game. Jacksonville Jaguars coming off of a thrilling 10-3 win. Was the final score 10-3?
Yes.
God damn it, that was a horrible football game.
As advertised that game, though.
Good.
It's just so
brilliantly
awesome.
Great job by the Bills and Jaguars to live up to everyone's low expectations. That was fantastic. Thanks for coming through and making us look smart. Yeah, look good. It looked like a good time.
Did you get an Andy Dalton tattoo if you're a Bills fan, only to score 3 points and get bounced in the wild card week?
Someone did that?
Yeah, I saw that.
So at least the best thing that happened out of the Bills playoff run was that a lot of money went to charity, so that's good.
Yes.
We don't know. It could have been a drawn-on tattoo like my Buzz Lightyear.
Good point.
I had a rooster.
Yeah, you did.
That's the easiest way to go viral these days is to have it drawn on a tattoo and be like, nobody's going to know. All right, as we were saying, the Jaguars, they won last week against the Bills. The Bills are gone because they stink. I tell you what, not to keep going off on tangents, but about 15 minutes into that football game, I was feeling a little bit dicey about calling the Bills one of the worst playoff teams in NFL history.
No, they
water found its level, but jeez, I was just scared for a second.
Water found its level.
Jaguars going to Pittsburgh, take on the Steelers at Heinz Field. Steelers 7.5-point favorites. This game's Sunday afternoon, as I said, 105 kick. I hate that too. That's annoying. Not that it matters. Total's 40.5 as it stands right now. I'm going to go against what I said earlier, but weather is looking like 19, cloudy. A light wind. 60% of the bets coming in on the Pittsburgh Steelers as it stands right now. It sounds like Steelers will get Antonio Brown back, which is as important of a player in this entire playoff field as there is. So like I said, 7.5-point favorites right now the Steelers are. Ricky, where do you stand on this one?
I'm going to take the Steelers. You're probably going to hear a lot over this week about their previous matchup, that Week 5 game. Obviously, it looks like a blowout, jumps off the page 30-9, but I don't think that was in any way, shape, or form indicative of how that game went.
Yeah.
You look at it. Steelers outgained the Jaguars in that game. More first downs in that game. They actually led 9-7 in the third quarter of that game. Then obviously Roethlisberger fell apart. He ended up with 5 picks, 2 pick sixes. Although I will mention that they were both tip passes, so that plays into a little bit. I just don't see that type of performance coming from him again. Also Leonard Fournette, 181 yards and 2 touchdowns in that game. That includes a 90-yard run with less than 2 minutes remaining, really in garbage time at that point. So that's going to reflect, you take that away, average 3.4 yards per carry, you add that in, 6.5. So it looks a lot better on paper.
I like that.
Than initially.
Wow.
Yeah,
you look back. Yourself, or did you follow on Twitter?
No, I went back. I did the film study. I did the film
impressive.
study.
I love archaeological findings.
But the one stat or the one area of that game that I think is worth taking into consideration is Blake Bortles' performance, especially off the flop last week. In that game, 8 for 14, 95 yards and an interception. Very Blake Bortles-like stat line. He had the lowest yardage of the entire season for him. Second worst QB rating. Tells me that he didn't play well in that game, clearly. After last week, I don't think he's going to run for 700 yards on 65 carries again, which it seemed like every time I turned around last week, that guy was taken off. I don't think he's going to be able to do that with any success against the Steelers.
He had more rushing yards than passing yards.
The guy was just the galloping gobbler out there. So I like the Steelers. Not putting a lot of stock into that game. I just think the talent levels there. Also, Steelers at that point in time didn't really know what they had in Juju Smith-Schuster.
Yeah.
Martavis Bryant didn't really carve out the role that he has now just yet. So they were kind of finding themselves a little bit.
Yeah, everything is early in the season. I agree with you, Ricky. I'm going to take the Steelers. You look at both of these teams' defenses, you think of their pass rush. Combined, these two teams had 111 sacks, 1 and 2 in the league. I love pass rushes, devastating pass rushes.
Like a pancake.
But what these teams do well is they protect their quarterbacks well. So you know what? If your teams are protecting their quarterbacks well, if you got an even playing field in the trenches, and you got the quarterbacks as Ben Roethlisberger against Blake Bortles, I'm going to take Ben Roethlisberger every single time. Ben Roethlisberger, look at this. First 9 games, 12 touchdowns, 10 picks. But
look at this.
But in the last 6 games, he's cleaned up his act. And look at this, 16 touchdowns, 4 picks. He's playing the best football of the year right now, heading into the playoffs. That's exactly what the Steelers want him to be doing. The Steelers haven't scored less than 20 points since week 6. Their offense is exploding. I'm not sure the Jaguars can score 20 points against the Steelers defense. Steelers had a very good defense this year. They're gonna win this one as well. Jaguars, they only beat one playoff team this year, and it was
quick thing on Bortles too. He attempted 6 passes last week of more than 5 yards.
Yeah, that's not going to cut it against the Pittsburgh defense. And also, it's 19 degrees. 19 degrees in Pittsburgh. Blake Bortles doesn't like 19-degree weather.
I don't know if you're going to touch on this, but you did a few weeks ago about how bad he is on the road.
I am going to touch on that, Ricky.
Let's go.
So when I first was making my notes for this game, I read a lot. I was looking at some things, and I almost did it. I almost took the Jaguars, and I'm like, I'm not taking Blake Bortles to win cover a playoff game on the road. I'm just not. And if any team is going to lose to Blake Bortles and the Jaguars, it's the goddamn Pittsburgh Steelers, because they do some dumb things sometimes, including in that game against the Jaguars, which I will get to. Todd Haley, I don't trust him as far as I can throw him, and he's a human adult male. I probably can't throw him very far. Ben Roethlisberger hates his guts. The guy is getting in bar fights, allegedly, doing all that. Just doesn't seem like a guy necessarily is going to lead them to the promised land. That being said, I just couldn't do it. Can't take Blake Bortles, so I'm taking the Steelers as well. I'll lay the points. I did mention this a couple weeks ago. There's more exhaustive stats. I think it was last week. But this is the only one that matters. Blake Bortles at home had a passer rating, I believe, of 98.9 in the regular season. On the road, it was 69. That's not nice. About a 30-point differential between home and road. He's just a different quarterback on the road. If the defense isn't making plays, isn't taking the ball away, isn't scoring, he's got issues on the road. That's exactly what they did against the Steelers, as you guys have both mentioned. And you kind of touched on this too. I forgot this until I went back and looked at it, that they were leading in the third quarter. Yeah. Not only that, they were dictating. They weren't pulling away, but sure, it's a tough game against a good defense. I looked at it. The Steelers ran for 62 yards through the first half in the first drive of the third quarter. And that first drive of the third quarter, they settled for a field goal to give them a 9-7 lead. Obviously, everything fell apart from there. Yeah. They ran the ball. They ran for 71 yards in that game. So they got 9 yards after that first drive in the third quarter. The rest of the game. And sure, the game kind of dictates that. Roethlisberger, I don't think Roethlisberger is going to have another 5-pick game. I just don't. I'm going out on a limb here.
He's been playing better football.
Two of those picks were tipped passes. Right. One was on the goal line at the end of the game when it was kind of getting out of hand a little bit.
This will be the coldest game that Blake Bortles has ever played in.
The other thing is,
bring a jacket.
Like Todd Haley, again, nobody's that dumb, right? Like the game plan is give the ball to Le'Veon Bell 35 times here, right? It has to be. You look at this too. Jaguars, a little banged up. One of the things, you don't get that bye. You got to play against a wild card game. The Bills aren't great, but they're a professional football team filled with professional football players who can all murder the three of us. So that takes its toll. Paul Plesney left the game early. He's got an ab or a hip injury. Left the game early, not practicing this week. You don't know if you're going to have him. That's a big loss for a team that's not very
revenge game.
Very good against the run to begin with. That's the other thing too about and we saw this at times last week. The Bills could run the football on the Jaguars. Also injured is apparently Telvin Smith, linebacker, a guy who supposedly. He's like the Le'Veon Bell guy for that Jaguars defense. Got an ankle injury. Missed practice this week as well. So if that run defense, which isn't very good to begin with, is banged up at the linebacker position, that's even more ammo for Pittsburgh to run the ball 40, 50 times in this game. So
40, 50.
Interesting note. This is from a column in CBS Sports that in Roethlisberger's 20 career postseason games, Steelers are 8-0 when he throws for 225 or fewer yards.
I like that.
Means
and they're 5-7 when he goes above that number. In other words, that just feeds into the storyline that you said, Mike, of just give the ball to Le'Veon Bell and get the hell out of the way, basically.
Yes. That being said, in that game earlier this year, the Jags gave up 20 receptions for 242 yards to wide receivers. So as bad as it might have looked, the Steelers were still able to move the football. Just take care of the football, you'll be fine.
Yeah. A lot of screenplay, a lot of bubble screens, a lot of bubble screens out there. Maybe take a couple shots later in the game outside the numbers.
I think that weather thing's huge too.
It's cold. Roethlisberger's better in those situations. Blake Bortles, he's played 2 cold games before.
Just home in general, that's a tough place to play.
Yeah, that's true.
You're the Patriots, it's a tough place.
Kicking
to play.
game's tough too. It's
got to be the toughest place to kick.
Yep. Especially going toward the open.
Early wins.
Yeah. So, all right.
Cyclones.
Last game. Final game. Finally, we can warm up.
Sunday afternoon. This is I would say. Are we going on record as calling this the best game of the weekend?
Yes. Best game of the year.
This should be the NFC Championship.
Yes. Great matchup. That's a good point, and I feel bad for the Saints because now they have to go on the road after winning last week at home against Carolina. They have to go to Minnesota to take on the Vikings. Vikings, as we all know, are trying to make a run to the Super Bowl and host the Super Bowl. And if you want to follow with Vegas, they've got a chance to just stay at home the entire time with the Falcons being favored at Philly. So if the Falcons win and the Vikings win, the NFC Championship will be in Minnesota, as is the Super Bowl. But we got to get through this first if you're the Vikings. Like I said, they are 4-point favorites at home. Again, in the Dome, weather's not going to be a factor here. Vegas has the line set at 45.5 points. 62% of the bets coming in on the Saints as it is right now. So, Andre, I ask you, are you also taking the points?
Taking the points, and here's why. The Saints showed us last week that they can beat you in many different ways, and that's what championship teams do. I still have the Saints winning the Super Bowl from the start of the playoffs, and here's why. They can run the ball with Kamara and Ingram, and they didn't have a particularly great game last week, but Drew Brees came out and said, hey, I'm still Drew Brees, and he had a monster game. They can beat you in many ways, and they got a great pass rush. In fact, their pass rush gets to the quarterback at a higher rate than the Vikings pass rush, even though the Vikings allow fewer yards per play. So the Saints have an excellent pass rush. They're going to get to the quarterback, and they protect their quarterback at a better rate than the Vikings offensive line. So here we are. Let's break it down now. Saints, better quarterback, better running game, probably better receivers with the exception of Adam Thielen. Michael Thomas is a pretty good football player. And then defensively, they're just as good as the Vikings. So I'm going to and again, they're the yards per play differential kings, the New Orleans Saints are. I'm not going to forget to mention that. And you're giving me points, I'll take it. It's in the dome. Weather's out of the factor. Drew Brees is going to be fantastic. What did you just say? I missed it.
No, I said unless you have visual evidence to back that.
No. Next week. But yeah, I just think this is a game. Saints are going to score a lot of touchdowns. Vikings are going to get a lot of field goals, and Saints are going to the NFC title game, baby. They're going to host it, too, against the Falcons.
The more I looked into this, the more I'm not 100% confident in my pick. A lot of trends swaying in things and variables. swing in the Vikings direction. But that said, I'm sticking with the Saints.
Yeah!
I'm going with the Saints. A lot of it, too, is the Drew Brees factor. I do like the playoff experience in this particular matchup. I know that's kind of unfair to Case Keenum. There's not really a lot to base whether he's going to, perform at a high level in the playoffs or whether he's going to come out and absolutely dump on his shoes. Like, I don't know what's going to happen, but I do know that first career playoff starts for quarterbacks recently has not fared well for a lot of guys. Since 2013, QBs making their first career playoff start have gone 3-12. 2 of those wins have come in games in which both quarterbacks were.
Someone has to win.
So something's got to give there.
That's a great stat.
So it's tough to, sometimes it's unfair to just compare Case Keenum, for instance, to Blake Bortles in his first career playoff start. Is 2 different guys.
Blake
obviously.
Bortles the other playoff?
Him and Tyrod Taylor were in the one of the games that.
It's the last week, yeah.
No. Oh, yeah.
You're acting like it happened like 4 years ago. Well, they were one of those games.
I don't know. I'm trying to talk myself into the Saints here, but I just think defensively they can get enough pressure on Keenum to make him have to make some throws into some tight windows, and in which case I think some turnovers, and that's where the Saints win the field possession battle and ultimately time possession. I don't know. I've been flip-flopping on this. I've been waffling, admittedly, but I'll take the Saints.
Yeah,
I like
position by position breakdown.
This is another one where the 1 point is really the difference in the spread. That 4 points is huge.
I know.
4 as opposed to 3.
That's why they do it.
Yeah.
But sometimes you just got to look at it this way. Saints, Vikings. Pretend the spread's even. Who's going to win? Probably the Saints because they're better at every position, the key positions. And you give them 4 points, obviously the Saints are going to cover that spread. I don't know. You disagree with us?
Yeah, I'm going to take. Let me just. I gotta finish looking up something real quick. Okay.
While you look that up, I just also want to mention that in a big game like this, 4th down, some teams are going to go for 4th downs. The Saints were number 1 in 4th down conversions. You're 80%.
Wow.
12 out of 15. 12 out of 15.
I like the quarterback stat.
15 instances all season that you're hanging your hat on in this one.
I trust Drew Brees.
No.
Wait, what was
most
the stat?
accurate quarterback?
What was the stat?
Are you being sarcastic?
No. Say the stat again.
4th down conversions.
They led the league.
They led.
They looked great on 4th down last week, and when they had to have a 4th down, they iced the game and they threw an interception.
Yeah, and that interception worked out very well for them.
Jesus.
It was like a punt.
All right.
Speaking of disregarding previous matchups too, like as we were talking about with the Steelers and the Jaguars game, the disregard week 1. I mean week 5, week 1 when these 2 teams met.
Yeah,
they've come a long way.
Yeah.
Both teams.
Yeah, Adrian Peterson is in that game.
Adrian Peterson gone. Don't know what you have. Alvin Kamara. That defense was historically bad.
Yeah.
Dalvin Cook was playing for the Vikings.
Yeah.
Sam Bradford. 2 different teams we got going.
That game too.
I like the stat, the quarterback stat. I don't necessarily think those quarterbacks. I don't know the list of them off the top of my head. They probably didn't have as good of a defense as Case Keenum does in this Vikings team. I think on paper, I'm really looking forward to this game. I think this has a chance to be a blowout. I think the Vikings have a chance to win this game by 2 touchdowns. That defense is so good. And one thing,
look at the Titans and the Patriots game and predicting a Vikings over Saints blowout.
I know. I look at it, again. It all comes down to the defense. Let me just run through some stats here. Again, my first note on the Vikings is that defense is so damn good. I mean, that pretty much says it all. But I did a lot of look on Pro Football Focus this week. They did their All-Pro awards. Their ratings or whatever. Harrison Smith, Vikings safety, one of the best defensive players that a lot of people haven't heard of, had the highest PFF grade of any player in the entire league. Finished with the highest PFF grade they've given a safety in 10 years of grading. He missed just 5 tackles the entire season and was, I think, 5th among safeties in tackling efficiency. That's going to be very important against a team that doesn't necessarily take deep shots all of the time and it relies so heavily on its running backs, especially in the passing game. If the Vikings wrap up and tackle, they're going to have a good chance of winning this game. Again, I mean, guys like Linval Joseph, who is one of the best defensive tackles, you're going up against an offensive line that's, yes, it's been good all year, but one of the bigger things, or one of the most overlooked storylines last weekend, the injury to the Saints left guard Andrews Pete. I think he fractured his tibia or fibula or whatever. Which one is? I don't know. Who cares? So I think he's out. I think he's on injured reserve. He was also the backup for Taron Armstead, the left tackle. So Armstead's been digged up for a while. If there are any sort of injuries on the offensive line, they're going to have a hellacious day. I don't care how good Drew Brees is. And man, Drew Brees looked awesome last week, running around in the pocket, made some great plays. Could be a little bit different on the road against the best defense I think that they faced all season.
Already faced them once.
Yeah, and they didn't do a great job, and they lost.
Yeah,
and I think sure the quarterback situation, a decisive advantage for the Saints. I don't think Case Keenum. We were talking about this earlier in the newsroom. The Case Keenum doesn't have a very high ceiling, but he doesn't have a very low floor either. I think he just takes care of the football. He's pretty good. They have a good offensive line. They did a great job. We've talked about this before. Them retooling their offensive line. That's paramount when you have a quarterback like this. He truly is. All you need to have him do is be a game manager, and they're going to be able to score the ball. I think they're going to be able to move the football. I think they're going to score some points, especially against Saints cornerbacks. Again, this is according to Pro Football Focus. Saints cornerbacks gave up 10 passing touchdowns this year in coverage. 9 of them came out of the slot. You know who's great out of the slot? Adam Thielen. You know, had a great game week 1 against the Saints? Adam Thielen. 9 catches, 157 yards. I think he has a big day as well. I think that's how they move the football. I think Jerick McKinnon has a nice day as well. And you talk about, one thing I looked at as well. Third down, the Saints aren't great on third down. They're not great.
Offensively?
Yeah.
But on a fourth down,
37. Yeah, no. 37.6.
Might as well punt on there.
They're 37.6% on third down.
Nail it in on third down.
That wasn't good.
The
Vikings allowing first downs, or they have a 25% third down percentage against. They get off the field. Here's the other thing: the Saints had the fewest third down attempts in all of football this year. That tells me they get the job done on first and second down. Ain't going to be as easy this time around. Just get the third down. The Vikings win this game.
Can we just say one thing, though? The Saints have to have 2 10-win teams in their division.
Okay.
The Vikings get to deal with the Bears, the Lions, and Brett Hundley twice.
Sure.
The schedule-wise, those numbers are a little bit skewed in favor of the Vikings. The Saints also had to play the Patriots.
Yep.
The Saints just had a much more difficult schedule than the Vikings did.
Yep.
So you gotta take that into account. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying Vikings defense isn't good. Let's just take that into account, and let's not crap on the Saints defense at all. Because they're a pretty damn good defense.
I think it's gonna be close, regardless of who wins this game. And this is where I kind of, the one thing it does sway me towards the Saints is because if it gets into a fourth quarter situation, I do trust Breeze more than Keenum. It just based on experience and all that, and also the numbers this year, Breeze. Fourth quarter, when tied or trailing by 1 score, 76% completion rate, 10.2 yards per attempt, 118.1 passer rating, really off the charts. I mean, he was very efficient all season long, more so than usual. So I think he set the NFL record for completion percentage. So I trust him. I trust him to make a big play. And if he throws a pick on the goal line with a minute and a half left, then I'll be my words. But
yeah, I'd rather take Breeze and say, Case Keenum's going to come out. I just don't see it happening. Blowout? I don't know, man. I don't know.
I'm liking this game, though.
I don't know.
Vikings don't have the blitz get after Breeze. I think we talked about it last week. Breeze great up against the blitz. Necessarily keep him in the pocket. I'm just saying.
They protect Breeze.
They have injuries on the offensive line, and they haven't had a test like this. And by the way, you know who the
other guys on that line that are still healthy?
You know which division played the NFC South this year?
In which?
The NFC North. The Vikings played all of these teams too that you talked about. So
that's what I'm saying. But the Vikings played them twice.
Yeah, I sure. No, but I'm saying that the Vikings also played the NFC South teams. It's nothing.
No, I understand that, but you get those teams twice.
And the only one they lost to was Carolina on the road. They got beat by Carolina on the road.
Vikings also had the AFC North.
It's just
Bengals and Browns.
We're done.
We are. It's going to be a great week of football. I can't wait.
I kind of wish this game was earlier in the weekend. I don't want to be tired, but Sunday night rolls or Sunday 4 o'clock.
I wish they started that. I wish we can go to Miller's Ale House across the street and watch these.
Stop saying that. They're not giving us any money. Or zingers.
I was going to say, I'll take a plate of zingers.
Yeah, he's just giving away free.
Jambalaya is good too there.
They have good jambalaya. All right, that's it for the Spread. NESN.com's Football Picks video podcast. Enjoy the games this weekend. Thanks, as always, to OddsShark for helping us out with the lines. They're great. Go check them out. Johnny OddsShark, great national championship. That guy's on fire this year. Yeah. We'll be back again next week to make championship picks. Yep, the great white shark, killing it. We'll be back again next week. We'll see you then. Enjoy the games.
Shark.
You know what I mean?